Welcome to this 10-minute expert insight video podcast that's produced by ENEA. I'm Charlie Ashton with 21K Consulting, and in this series of podcasts, we're talking to industry experts about trends and challenges in IoT, SD-WAN, edge compute, and network virtualization. For our conversation today, I'm delighted to welcome Roy Chua, principal at Avidthink, which is an independent research and analyst company focused on technology infrastructure. Roy's going to talk to us about having fun while getting SASE with SD-WAN. What a title. So, Roy, before we start talking about the main points for this podcast, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about Avidthink?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Charlie, and appreciate the opportunity to be speaking with you. Always a pleasure. Avidthink is, as you point out, a research and analysis firm. Avidthink was originally part of a company called SDXCentral.com, which I co-founded in 2012. And at the end of 2018, we spun Avidthink out as a independent research and analysis firm. And as for me, I've been working in IT and networking for 20-something years, too long. Got my start at Cisco doing ATM networking, and not the cash ATM, but the ATM that we knew and loved, and unfortunately is no longer in existence. But we have SD-WAN to replace that. So anyhow, so we cover, as you point out, a lot of topics that look at the technology infrastructure and the impact of the technology infrastructure for businesses today.
Yeah, and so a lot of your research briefs and your articles are focused on SD-WAN. So what do you see as the business needs and also the technology innovations that are really driving all this interest in SD-WAN from enterprises?
Yeah, so I think we ended up getting SD-WAN at a pretty interesting time. I think corporations were looking at their WANs, which had been underinvested for some period of time. At the same time, we had a wave of new requirements. So, a lot more media streaming, a lot more requirements from branch offices, a lot more cloud type traffic. And so what the corporations realized that they had an aging WAN infrastructure and not quite sure what to do with it. And then along came SD-WAN, that in many ways, SD-WAN is a collection of many technologies that we're already familiar with. And so from a risk perspective, it wasn't very high. And so SD-WAN solved the problem of, connecting all these branches, using cheaper alternatives to MPLS or in conjunction with MPLS, and providing higher reliability, higher security, and a better feature set. And so what's not to like, right? It's trusted technologies. Right. It solves the problem that you have today, and it gives you, a lot of the benefits you're looking for from a security and performance standpoint. So I think that's part of what drove its rapid adoption.
Yeah. So have you seen any real credible metrics for the actual return on investment that customers can achieve when they adopt SD-WAN?
Yeah, so it's interesting you should ask the question. I think if you look at, just about every major SD-WAN vendor, and there are a lot of them, at 60, 70 plus, yeah. Everyone has their own metrics. And what I would say is that, about a year, slightly over a year ago, we did a project. We did a project for a large system integrator. So they didn't have an SD-WAN product at that point in time, and they were just interested in understanding the impact of SD-WAN. And so we ran a survey for them. And even back then, right over a year ago, we got back some surprising results. I would say that a lot of folks, saw significant savings. A lot of them were able to realize savings of more than 20%. In fact, wow. What we saw was about a third of them had savings of more than 20%, and another third of them had savings between 10 to 20%, which was actually quite significant. And then, in terms of network performance, more than sort of the ROI calculation, what they saw was a percentage improvement in performance of over 50%. So about 1/5 of them saw that in the survey. And then another 1/5 of them saw somewhere between 25 to 50% network improvement. So, and this was an independent survey. And so even then, I would say that, we were already seeing substantial benefits from SD-WAN, which is no surprise as to why, we're seeing a rapid growth of SD-WAN across the board, right? It does return value. Yeah. And, whether you believe the numbers that all the vendors tout or not, fundamentally, there is substantial savings and improvements from SD-WAN.
Yeah. So as companies are looking at all of these vendors for SD-WAN solutions, what are some of the key factors that they should actually be considering as they're doing those evals?
Yeah, so I think we've talked to a lot of enterprises and service providers around SD when we work with some of the tier one service providers, and we provide guidance in terms of how to provide a value proposition and the like. And it comes down to every enterprise is different, and which is why it speaks to I think a pretty large market for a lot of vendors that can succeed in it. And depending on your immediate driver, right? So whether your driver is security, whether your driver is scalability and flexibility, whether your driver is a cloud-first solution. I think looking at that, helps you determine what the right class of SD-WAN solutions is. And there are multiple classes. The way I view SD-WAN is some kind of holy grail where everyone's trying to get to, and they all come from different locations, right? They come from whether they used to be a firewall solution, a security solution, they used to be a router solution, a Wi-Fi solution, a WAN-up solution. They're all trying to get to this holy grail, this perfect SD-WAN, right? Which it's hard, it's never attainable. But depending on your enterprise challenges that you're seeing, picking one of more of these flavors is probably the right thing to do, right? There's no perfect solution, but there's probably the more correct solution on a per enterprise basis.
Right. So of course, last year Gartner introduced this concept called SASE or SASE. So can you explain what this SASE thing is all about, and what's its relationship to these SD-WAN capabilities that you've been talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, Gartner was actually quite smart in coming up with a new category, SASE, right? Secure Access Service Edge. And I think what they caught on to was fundamentally they were talking a lot of enterprises, as Gartner is bound to do, and they realized that the WAN problem was shifting. In the old days, the WAN problem was, whether it was a hub and spoke or a full mesh, you were trying to connect different parts of the company together. Mm-hmm. And the problem has shifted, right? Now with SaaS offerings, IaaS, and PaaS offerings, whether you're a developer, whether you're an end user, and just a general employee of a company, your first interaction is usually with the cloud now, right? And usually public cloud, but certainly public and private clouds. And so Gartner realized that this secure access from the edge was changing. It was no longer hub and spoke. It was basically spoke to cloud, right, being the primary. And so what Gartner did was it was a kitchen sink collection of all the security solutions that we're covering, right, secure web gateways, CASBs, and all that, and throwing all that into sort of one bucket called SASE, which is slightly amorphous, but it does capture that cloud first shift within the enterprises today. And so if you look at that in SD-WAN, well, SD-WAN is a software-defined WAN. And a lot of the SASE access is from, sort of where these locations are. And so there is a lot of overlap between SASE and SD-WAN. Does SD-WAN become SASE? It's hard to say, but fundamentally, I think we're all going after the same goal. How do you connect all the employees and all the devices within an enterprise, to the cloud and to private resources in a secure, scalable, way, right?
Yeah. So, okay. So then the best acronym I think I've seen this year is FUN, which you wrote about that back in January during CES in Vegas, before the world turned serious. So, okay, even though what happens at CES stays in Vegas, what can you tell us about this concept of fun that you're so interested in?
Yeah, so this concept of fun was something we did in Jest actually last year. We introduced the concept of the fabric for universal networking, which is fun. Actually, we started out doing universal networking fabric, but UNF doesn't sound as fun as fun. Anyway, so we did that. And the concept there was a more networking centric than sort of Gartner's security centricity view of SASE. And it was about enterprises. We spoke to a lot of enterprises, and they were all trying to connect a lot of domains together, right? You have the data center, you have your campus, you have essentially your access, your edge, right? And you have mobile devices. Now, how do you put that all together in one, sort of secure connectivity fabric? That's the concept of fun, right? The fabric for universal networking. It provides universal connectivity and then security on top of that, and all the concepts of zero trust, concepts of policy driven, intent driven, right? It captures all that, and and the reality fundamentally is that this fun concept is meant as a goal, as a thought architecture. It may not be fully realizable, right? In our lifespans anyway.
Right. Well, thanks, Roy, for these fascinating observations on fun. So for more insights from Roy and the rest of the Avidthink team, please do take a look at their website. There's a ton of information there. Thank you for watching this podcast, and please look out for more of these 10-minute expert insights brought to you by INEA. Thank you.